Time travel is easily one of the most mind-bending concepts in the entire Ben 10 universe. Every time someone travels through time, it doesn't just make the story more complicated, it creates alternate timelines, changes important events, and leaves fans with countless unanswered questions. So today, we're going through every major time travel event in Ben 10 one by one. We'll explain exactly what happened, why it happened, and how each event affected the timeline. The very first time travel event in Ben 10 happens in the classic series, in the iconic Ben 10,000 episode. The episode begins on a peaceful day. It's Grandpa Max's birthday, and Ben and Gwen are preparing a surprise celebration. Gwen has already arranged almost everything for the party. The only thing Ben has to do is bring the birthday cake. Simple enough, except Ben completely forgets. Because of that, Ben and Gwen start arguing. But before the argument can go any further, a mysterious portal suddenly opens. Out of that portal steps an older version of Gwen from the future. Without giving much of an explanation, future Gwen grabs present Gwen and takes her through the portal. Ben immediately transforms into XLR8 and chases after them. Once they reach the future, future Gwen reveals why she brought them there. She tells them that Ben 10,000 desperately needs their help. Naturally, both Ben and the audience assume that some incredibly powerful villain has appeared, someone so dangerous that even future Ben can't defeat alone. But that's not what this episode is actually about. Yes, we do see Ben 10,000 fighting several powerful villains throughout the episode, and he defeats them without much difficulty. The real conflict isn't about defeating villains, it's about saving Ben himself. Future Gwen explains that over the years, Ben became so obsessed with being a hero that he completely neglected his family. He handled every mission alone, refused to involve the people closest to him, and slowly drifted away from everyone he cared about. She didn't bring present Ben to the future to help win a battle. She brought him there so future Ben could remember what truly mattered. By the end of the episode, future Ben finally realizes his mistake and reconnects with the people he loves. Everything seems perfect until one tiny decision changes the entire timeline. As future Gwen prepares to send Ben and Gwen back to their own time, Ben 10,000 stops present Ben and hands him a small cube. At first, it doesn't seem important, but when present Ben returns home and opens the cube, a birthday cake pops out. And believe it or not, that single cake changes history. Here's why. In Ben 10,000's original timeline, this event never happened. Young Ben never received that cake from his future self. So when present Ben suddenly brings the cake home, the birthday celebration unfolds differently than it originally did. That tiny change alters future events. And once history changes, a brand new branch timeline is created. This is actually one of the biggest reasons why we end up seeing so many different versions of Ben 10,000 throughout the franchise. Now, this doesn't mean time travel is always dangerous. The real problem is changing the past without correcting it afterward. Professor Paradox later shows us the proper way to avoid creating branch timelines. If future Ben had never given young Ben the cake, and if future Gwen had erased Ben and Gwen's memories before sending them back to the exact moment they left, then history would have continued exactly as it originally happened. No alternate future, no branch timeline. But none of that happened. Instead, one small birthday cake permanently split the timeline, creating an entirely new future for Ben. And that's where Ben 10's complicated time travel history truly begins. After the Ben 10,000 episode, the classic series doesn't feature any more actual time travel. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, what about the Ken 10 episode? Wasn't that time travel? Not exactly. Ken 10 is simply a story set in the future. Nobody travels through time during that episode. We aren't watching present Ben visit the future, nor does anyone from the future travel back to the past. So the next real-time travel event doesn't happen until Ben 10 Alien Force in the legendary episode Paradox. And this is where Ben 10's time travel gets a lot more complicated. The episode introduces a mysterious, trans-dimensional monster. Everywhere this creature goes, it leaves destruction behind. Anything it touches instantly ages by 50 years. Buildings crumble into ruins, vehicles rust away, plants wither, and even living people rapidly grow old. Kevin becomes one of its victims after being touched by the creature, instantly aging decades in just a few seconds. Even Professor Paradox, someone who understands time better than almost anyone, initially can't stop what's happening. At first, nobody understands what this creature really is. But Ben eventually notices something strange. During one of the attacks, Professor Paradox suddenly appears and protects him from the monster. That single moment gives Ben an idea. He realizes that if they can travel back to the exact moment when all of this first began, maybe they can prevent the disaster altogether. So Ben asks Professor Paradox to take everyone back to the origin of the incident. Paradox agrees. The team travels decades into the past, to the day everything started. They arrive at a scientific experiment involving a dimensional portal. As the machine activates, something goes horribly wrong. Professor Paradox accidentally falls into the portal. Seeing his partner disappear, another scientist named Hugo jumps in after him, hoping to save his friend. Fortunately, Ben reacts just in time. He transforms into Humongosaur and manages to pull Hugo back before he's completely swallowed by the portal. And just like that, the entire future changes. The disaster never happens. The world is saved. But this raises several important questions. If Hugo survived, then who was the monster? And why was everything it touched aging by 50 years? Here's what actually happened. In the original timeline, Professor Paradox became trapped inside the event horizon for more than 100,000 years before eventually escaping and becoming the master of time that we know today. But Hugo wasn't as lucky. Instead of reaching the same place as Paradox, Hugo became separated from both space and time itself. His body slowly mutated over countless years until he transformed into the horrifying trans-dimensional monster. Now here's the biggest misconception. Most fans think the monster was intentionally destroying everything. It wasn't. It was actually trying to find its way back home. Since Hugo no longer existed within normal space and time, every attempt to return to the present accidentally caused temporal decay. Anything he came close to instantly aged by 50 years. He wasn't attacking cities because he wanted to destroy them. He was desperately searching for help. That's why he kept appearing near places where people could potentially save him. Laboratories, public buildings, even police stations. The aging effect also follows a simple rule. Because Hugo had been displaced by roughly 50 years relative to the present timeline, anything he touched was forced 50 years forward in age. When Kevin was touched, Kevin himself aged 50 years. Once Ben prevents Hugo from entering the portal, the entire paradox disappears. Hugo lives a normal life. The monster never exists. Now we finally arrive at Ben 10 Omniverse, the series that completely changes everything we thought we knew about time travel. Until now, every time travel story involved changing the past or creating alternate futures. But Omniverse raises the stakes even higher. This time, the fate of time itself is at risk. The mastermind behind all of this is Maltruant. Unlike previous villains, Maltruant doesn't want to conquer Earth or even the universe. He wants to rewrite the entire timeline from the very beginning, but terrifying in execution. Travel back to the birth of the universe, take control of history, and recreate reality in his own image. To stop him, Ben teams up with one of the few aliens capable of manipulating time itself. Clockwork. Throughout the series, Ben and his allies chase Maltruant across different eras, jumping through history while trying to stop him before he reaches his final destination. But Omniverse introduces another fascinating concept. No Watch Ben. This is a version of Ben who never found the Omnitrix. At first, he seems completely ordinary. No powers, no alien transformations, just a normal kid living a normal life. But his existence proves one of the biggest rules of the Ben 10 multiverse. A single event can completely rewrite an entire future. If Ben never finds the Omnitrix, everything changes. The friendships he forms, the enemies he fights, even the person he eventually becomes. It's another perfect example of how every major decision creates a completely different timeline. As the story continues, Maltruant finally reaches the moment he has been waiting for, the creation of the universe itself. If he succeeds here, every timeline we've seen throughout Ben 10 would disappear. Classic Ben. Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, Omniverse, even every alternate Ben across the multiverse. Everything would be erased. The final battle becomes one of the biggest conflicts in the franchise. Eventually, Maltruant is defeated before he can reshape reality. The original timeline survives, the multiverse remains intact, and history continues as it was meant to. But after looking at every major time travel event across the franchise, one important question still remains. How does time travel actually work in Ben 10? After analyzing every episode, the rules become surprisingly consistent. Rule 1. Changing the past usually creates a branch timeline instead of replacing the original one. That's exactly what happened with Ben 10,000's birthday cake, and later, when Gwen tried to save Kevin in Time Heals. Rule 2. If every change is reversed and everyone's memories are erased before returning to their original time, the timeline remains stable. We saw this in Forge of Creation, where Professor Paradox erased young Ben's memories before sending him home. Because no future knowledge remained, no alternate timeline was created. Rule 3. Not every alternate timeline is considered a mistake. Sometimes Professor Paradox deliberately allows them to exist because removing them would only create even more paradoxes. That's why multiple versions of Ben 10,000 can all exist at the same time. And finally, Rule 4. No matter how many timelines are created, Professor Paradox always protects the balance between them. He isn't trying to prevent time travel, he's making sure it doesn't destroy reality. That's what makes him one of the most important characters in the entire Ben 10 franchise. He's not the strongest, he's not the fastest, but without him, the Ben 10 universe would have collapsed long ago. And that's every major time travel event across the Ben 10 franchise explained. From Ben 10,000's birthday cake to Hugo becoming the trans-dimensional monster, Maltruant's attempt to rewrite the universe itself. Every single event follows the same underlying rules. Once you understand those rules, Ben 10's timeline becomes far less confusing than it first appears. So, which time travel story is your favorite? Was it the emotional Ben 10,000 episode, the brilliant Paradox storyline, or Omniverse's multiversal finale? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.